Objective of this video is to teach you how to prepare for your exams without wasting your time, so we're going to improve your focus so you can get the most out of your learning. The first thing you've got to understand is that an exam is just a game. This means that you want to figure out how to play this game as early as possible, so cramming is not advised. Exams have predefined rules and you've got to respect those rules if you want to win at the game. These rules dictate clearly how you win and how you lose. With the game of Monopoly, you take turns in playing the game, and depending on where you land on the board, that will decide what you get to do on that turn. Similarly, with exams, you have to show knowledge of certain topics, you have to work within strict time constraints, and you have to answer the question that they give you. As exams are just games, this is great because you can come up with a strategy as you do with a game on how to get more marks. This is fantastic because exam serves as an indicator as to your aptitude. It serves as an indicator as to your work ethic, your knowledge, and your general intelligence. However, the exams are a game mind frame can be destructive to learning, but that is a topic for another video. I'd just like to point that out, that this is not a perfect solution for learning. This is just how to get better at doing exams. The upside is that as you're saving time preparing for your exams, that means you can explore your intellectual and learning curiosity because, well, yep, you have more time. So with this game mindset put in place, we're going to cover 3 things in this video. What moves are you allowed to make? How many points various moves are worth? And figuring out when it is your turn to play. So with the what moves should you make, this is just what knowledge do you need to demonstrate, and this comes down to the syllabus for the exam that you're taking. Essentially this means you need to figure out what it takes to win. To get a perfect win in an exam, you need to get 100%, which certainly is not impossible. For any of you thinking that it is, what's 10 times 10? If you said 100, then well done, you just got 100% in the test that I just made up off the top of my head. For sure you might think that that is too easy, but it was only easy because you knew the answer. You were prepared, and if you're prepared for the exams that you need to take, you're going to find answering the questions very straightforward. Unfortunately for us, regardless of which exam you're taking, whether it be the GCSE, the IB, the CBSE or A-levels or your university finals exams, there is always a syllabus. The syllabus outlines what it is that you need to know. For instance, for my university finals, I was required to answer 3 questions for each of the 8 papers that I was taking. That means technically the minimum amount of work I needed to do is just learn 3 topics for each of the papers. Knowing this basically cut my workload for finals in half. In fact, it's more than half. It's just like in Monopoly where you don't try and buy every single property that's on the board. Instead, you try to allocate your resources tactically such that you get the most amount of income for the least amount of money spent. However, there was a risk with this strategy for my exams. There was a chance that the questions that come up may be horrible, which means that I would be forced to answer the horrible question or questions because I'd only studied 3 topics. So with that risk in mind, I decided to study for 4 topics, and I advise you to also take this sort of risk calculation in mind when you're preparing for your exams, but this still reduces your workload by half. So imagine if I gave you twice as much time to prepare for your upcoming exams. That's basically what we just did. Okay, now we come to what skills do you need to demonstrate, and this just comes to your mark schemes. Mark schemes just dictate how many points the examiner is going to give you for an answer that you give to a particular question. This is kind of obvious, but what isn't immediately obvious is that you should make yourself extremely familiar with the mark scheme. I used to think foolishly that one should not read the mark schemes because it was a form of cheating, but that's silly. They made it available to you for a reason. So Google it, find it, learn it, memorize it, internalize it. If you don't know what gets you points, how do you hope to make all the correct moves to help you get those points? To win. What if you assume that you're meant to be saving the peasants, so you start leading the next ogre genocide, only to realize that your score is now ridiculously negative because it turns out that you're actually on the ogre's team and the peasants were the enemy. Science subjects are more straightforward when it comes to figuring out what it is that gets you points because the answer is more black or white. You have either calculated the integral of a particular equation or you haven't. Art subjects are less straightforward because the answers are more open to interpretation. Whether or not you've demonstrated a certain skill to a certain caliber is far more subjective. For instance, a history paper's mark scheme might say that you need to show analytical ability in your answers and good communication skills. In practice, you might discover that this means that you should have an argument rather than just describing what is actually happening at a particular time and use sources to back up your argument, and then acknowledge the limitations of those sources while using good grammar and good spelling to convey your argument. I'll be including examples on the Odd Education website to help you decrypt your own mark scheme, so don't worry if it's not quite clear yet. So now you know how to play the game and how to win the game, you need to learn when it's your turn to play the game. Like when you're playing a game normally and it's everyone else's turn, it's not your turn, you're waiting for it to get your turn so you can execute your perfect strategy so you can capture all of the treasure. In the context of your exams, this is when you're due to sit your exams. You should find out when this is as soon as possible so you can have that date in your mind. That is your target, and if you don't know what it is that you're you are shooting for, you're going to be far more likely to miss. If you know the date, you can plan your actions accordingly so you can know what is realistic for you to have achieved by the time that date rolls around. If the precise dates for your exam have yet to be released, then just use last year's exam dates. If you can't find last year's exam dates, then you should have a feel for when exam season is, so say it's around May. Just mark the 1st of May as exam day. It's best to deal with the worst case scenario and be prepared for that than think that it's going to be slightly later. So now you have discovered that you need to know what the least amount of work is that you need to do to get the most reward. You know how to get points in this game of exams. And you know when it's your turn to play, which means you know what your end goal is. Never forget your end goal. Being aware of all of these things means that you are far more prepared to ace your exams. For more details of everything that I said here and for the transcript of this video, do check out the Odd Education website. Be sure to join the conversation with us down in the comments, and if you have any study challenges or study tips that you would like to share, let us know and we'll try to help. Welcome to An Odd Education, where Oxford and Cambridge students use neuroscience and psychology and our own experiences to teach you how to study more effectively. This means you'll get higher grades, you'll learn how to learn, and you'll learn how to think.